The poison was tasteless. The choice was impossible. And the man she was supposed to murder was standing in the doorway, watching her cry. Scarlet pressed her trembling face against the silk shirts hanging in Choi Ye-jun's walk-in closet. The expensive fabric smelling of cedar and tobacco and money she'd never touch in 3 lifetimes, desperately trying to muffle the sobs that kept tearing through her chest like broken glass cutting from the inside out. Her fingers were wrapped so tightly around the crystal decanter of whiskey that her knuckles had gone bone-white, and the small glass vial in her other hand, filled with powder that looked innocent as sugar but promised death as certain as a bullet, felt like it weighed more than her entire body, more than her soul, more than the 5 years she'd spent loving a little boy who was dying because she couldn't save him. When the door didn't just open but exploded inward, kicked off its hinges with a violence that sent splinters of wood skittering across marble, flooding the intimate darkness with harsh light that made her squeeze her eyes shut in pure, devastating mortification, Scarlet knew her carefully constructed world had just shattered beyond any hope of repair. Standing there in the doorway, filling the entire frame with his 6'3" presence that always made the air feel thinner and more dangerous, was Choi Ye-jun himself, the Viper, the most feared mafia boss on the entire West Coast, the man whose coffee she prepared every morning at exactly 7:15 in bone china cups she hand-washed because he didn't trust the dishwasher, the man whose cold, obsidian eyes could make grown men weep and beg and confess to sins they hadn't even committed yet, standing there shirtless with dragon tattoos scaling up his neck and across his chest, the Geom crest marking him as someone who'd been born into violence and had made it into art. Fresh blood was splattered across his knuckles from whatever brutal business he'd just finished, and he held a gun in one hand and his phone in the other, his expression shifting from lethal alertness to something she'd never seen cross his devastatingly dangerous face before. Genuine, unfiltered concern. For 8 months, Scarlet had maintained the perfect facade of the efficient, invisible Maid. The woman who never flinched when blood-stained men walked through the penthouse doors tracking violence across floors she'd have to clean, who never asked questions about the briefcases full of cash or the hushed conversations in Korean about territories and shipments and people who needed to disappear, who kept her eyes down and her hands steady even when her boss's dangerous world crashed against the walls of their shared space like violent waves against fragile glass. She had been so careful, so meticulously professional, cleaning his chaotic empire with microfiber cloths and unscented cleaning products, keeping her inappropriate awareness of him buried so deep beneath layers of professionalism and survival instinct that she sometimes almost convinced herself it didn't exist at all. But now, everything was crumbling around her like a house of cards in a hurricane, and the one person she never wanted to see her broken was staring at her with an intensity that made her already racing heart threaten to burst right through her ribcage, because she wasn't just caught crying. She was caught with poison in her hands and murder in her heart, standing in his closet like the traitor they'd forced her to become. "Scarlet," he said, and the way her name rolled off his tongue in that deep, commanding voice that usually barked orders about eliminating problems and handling situations made something inside her chest crack even wider, because there was a gentleness there she'd never heard before, a softness that seemed impossible coming from a man who reportedly once killed 3 rivals with his bare hands in a warehouse downtown, never breaking a sweat, never showing mercy. He stepped into the closet, which suddenly felt impossibly small, his broad shoulders and muscular frame taking up all the oxygen, and she watched through blurred vision as he tucked his gun into the holster at his hip with practiced ease before reaching out with one large, calloused hand to tilt her chin up with surprising tenderness, forcing her to meet those storm-dark eyes that seemed to see straight through every defense she'd ever built, every lie she'd ever told, every desperate prayer she'd whispered into the darkness. "Who made you cry?" he asked, his voice dropping to something soft and deadly. And then, with the casual certainty of a man who solved problems with permanent efficiency, he added, "And how would you like their body disposed of?" The question should have terrified her, should have reminded her exactly what kind of man she worked for, what kind of darkness lived behind those expensive, tailored suits and that calculating gaze that missed nothing, ever. But instead, something warm and desperate unfurled in her stomach, because for the first time in her entire life, someone was offering to shoulder her burdens, to eliminate her problems with the kind of permanent efficiency that only a man like Choi Ye-jun could provide. A man who commanded an empire built on fear and loyalty and blood. She opened her mouth to lie, to brush it off as nothing, to maintain the professional distance that had kept her employed and alive for these past 8 months. But the words died in her throat when she saw the way his jaw clenched, the way his free hand curled into a fist at his side, as if he was physically restraining himself from hunting down whoever had caused her tears, from painting the city red until she smiled again. But then, his eyes, those black, bottomless eyes that missed nothing, dropped to her hands, to the crystal decanter, to the vial of white powder clutched in her shaking fingers like a confession she couldn't take back. The air changed, went cold and sharp as a blade. "Scarlet," he said again, but this time her name sounded different, dangerous, like a question and an accusation and a threat all wrapped into 2 syllables. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but watch as Choi Ye-jun, the Viper, the man who'd shown her more respect in 8 months than anyone had in her entire life, reached down and gently, so impossibly gently, took the vial from her trembling hand. "Did they promise he wouldn't feel pain?" he asked, his voice soft as silk, deadly as poison. "Because they lied, Scarlet." And then, while she watched in absolute horror, he uncapped the vial, poured the white powder into the whiskey she'd been meant to serve him, and lifted the glass to his lips. "No!" The scream tore from her throat as she lunged forward, her hands reaching desperately to knock the glass away. But he was faster, always faster, catching her wrists with one hand while he drank with the other, his eyes never leaving hers as he swallowed down what should have been his death. The glass hit the floor, shattered, just like everything Scarlet thought she knew. But Choi Ye-jun didn't collapse, didn't gasp, didn't die. He just stood there, perfectly still, perfectly alive, watching her fall apart with an expression that was somehow tender and terrifying all at once. "I spent the last 5 years building an immunity to that specific toxin, Scarlet. Small doses, every day, just in case. But I didn't want to test my limits tonight. 3 days ago," he said quietly, releasing her wrists so he could cup her face in both hands, forcing her to look at him even though she wanted to disappear, wanted to die, wanted anything but this. "I swapped the poison in your purse. What you just watched me drink was sugar and water." Scarlet's legs gave out. Only his hands kept her upright. "I've been watching you, Jagi," he continued, using the Korean endearment that meant something precious, something cherished. "Watching you agonize every night over whether you could do it, whether you could actually kill me to save your son. And you know what I learned?" She couldn't speak, could barely breathe. His thumb brushed away a tear. "You couldn't. Even when they told you Leo would die screaming, even when they sent you pictures of him suffering, you couldn't pull the trigger. You'd rather watch your own child die than become a murderer." "Please," she whispered, the word breaking in her throat. "Please don't hurt him. He's only 5. He's innocent. If you want to punish someone, punish me, but please, hurt him." Something that might have been a smile, dark and possessive, curved Ye-jun's lips. He leaned down until his forehead rested against hers, until she could feel his breath against her skin, until there was nothing in the world but him and the terrible, impossible thing he was about to say. "Scarlet Miller," he whispered. "You tried to kill me and failed. Do you know what that means in my world?" She shook her head, tears streaming freely now. "It means you owe me a life." His hands tightened on her face, not painfully, but possessively, like he was claiming something that had always belonged to him. "Your life, Leo's life. Everything you are and everything you love now belongs to me." Her heart stopped, shattered, reformed into something new and terrifying. "We're going to get your son back," he said, his voice dropping to a deadly promise that sent shivers racing down her spine. "And then, Scarlet, you and I are going to burn the entire Red Lotus Syndicate to the ground, together." He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes, and what she saw there wasn't anger or betrayal, or even triumph. It was something infinitely more dangerous. It was obsession. "Welcome to the family, Jagi," Choi Ye-jun said, his smile sharp enough to cut. "Now let me show you what happens to people who threaten what's mine." But to understand how a maid ended up standing in a killer's closet with murder in her hands, you have to go back to 3 months earlier, when Scarlet Miller was just a desperate woman with a dying child and no options left. Back to the moment she walked through the doors of the GM Syndicate's headquarters and sold her soul for minimum wage and health insurance she'd never be able to use. Back to the day she met the Viper and learned that some men don't just kill you. Some men own you. And some kinds of ownership feel dangerously close to salvation. Welcome back, my fierce hearts and midnight dreamers. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing our little dark romance family stretch across cities, countries, and time zones. Every click, every comment, every bit of love you leave here helps us keep unraveling these dangerous love stories and high-stakes betrayals together. So find your quiet place, dim the lights, and get ready. Let's begin. The bedroom hit me like a cold wave. All steel gray silk and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed Seattle's skyline like a postcard from hell. Rain hammered the glass in sheets, each drop catching the neon glow from below, turning the room into a kaleidoscope of red and blue shadows. My feet barely touched the marble floor as Ye-jun pulled me forward, his grip on my wrist neither cruel nor gentle, just absolute. The kind of touch that said you don't get to fall apart yet. I tried to wrench free anyway, my voice cracking. Please. Leo needs his medication, they said if I didn't. The words dissolved into hiccuping sobs because my brain couldn't process it anymore. The poison that wasn't poison. The test I'd failed by not being a murderer. The way this man had swallowed death just to prove I was weak. Ye-jun released me so suddenly I stumbled, catching myself on the edge of a bed that could have fit 6 people. The sheets were black, because of course they were. Everything in this place screamed control. From the minimalist art on the walls to the single orchid on the nightstand. White and perfect, and probably more expensive than my entire year's salary. He moved to the window, his bare back to me, and I saw the full artwork for the first time. The dragon wasn't just on his neck, it coiled down his spine in obsidian ink, scales so detailed they seemed to shift with each breath. The geum crest sat at the base, a sword wreathed in thorns. His shoulders carried scars, thin white lines that spoke of knives that had gotten too close. Blood still streaked his knuckles, drying brown against golden skin. "You think I'm the monster?" he said, voice low enough that I had to stop crying to hear it. "You're standing in my home, sent to kill me, and you think I'm the villain in this story. You drank poison to mess with my head." The accusation burst out of me, sharp and desperate. "You could have just told me you knew. You didn't have to make me watch." He turned, and the city lights behind him made a halo of rain-fractured color around his silhouette. His face was all brutal angles, sharp jaw and sharper cheekbones, lips that looked carved from stone. But his eyes, God, his eyes were the worst part, dark and depthless. They didn't just look at me, they dissected me, peeling back every defense until I felt naked, despite my soaked uniform still clinging to my skin. "If I'd told you, you would have run. Warned them, gotten yourself killed in some alley before sunrise." He approached slowly, each step deliberate. A predator who knew his prey had nowhere to go. "The Red Lotus doesn't forgive failure, Scarlet. They needed to believe you tried. That you broke. That the poison was real, and I died screaming." He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could smell the copper penny scent of blood mixed with something darker, richer, bergamot and smoke. "So I gave them a performance, and you gave me the truth." My hands fisted in my stained apron. "What truth? That I'm a coward? That I can't even save my own?" The word son stuck in my throat, jagged and cutting, because Tyrell had made me lie. "Say he's your brother," he'd insisted. "They'll use a kid against you differently if they know he's yours. That you're not a killer." Ye-jun's voice softened, barely, just enough to feel like a caress instead of a command. "The Lotus sent dozens before you. Smiling waitresses, friendly drivers, a priest, once. They all tried. Some got further than others." His gaze flicked to a nearly invisible scar along his collarbone. None of them hesitated. "You did. Even with your brother dying, you couldn't pour the glass." "He's not." I bit my lip hard enough to taste metal. "Leo's 5. He has nightmares about dinosaurs, and he won't eat green beans, and he—" My voice shattered. "He's running out of time and you're playing games." Something flickered across Ye-jun's face, gone too fast to name. He moved past me to the wall, his fingers finding a seam I hadn't noticed. With a soft click, a panel slid open, revealing a bank of monitors that hummed to life with cold blue light. The air left my lungs. 6 screens, 6 different angles. One showed the penthouse living room, the same room I'd vacuumed yesterday, now empty and dark. Another showed the building's lobby. The third made my knees buckle. Leo's hospital room. The image was grainy but clear enough to see the rails on the bed, the IV stand, the monitors tracking vitals in neon green lines. And Leo, tiny and fragile under white sheets, his brown skin ashen against the pillow, his hand curled around the stuffed bear I'd won at a carnival 2 years ago when everything was still okay. But he wasn't alone. A man sat in the chair beside the bed, broad-shouldered and still, with something dark resting across his lap. It took my brain a second to register it as a gun. You. I couldn't form words. You have someone guarding him? 3 people. Ye-jun's voice came from behind me, close enough that his breath stirred my hair. Rotation every 8 hours. The Red Lotus owns the hospital administration, but they don't own the night nurses or the parking garage. My men have been inside since the day they moved him there. I spun, and suddenly he was right there, inches away, his chest a wall of ink and muscle and heat. Why? You don't know us. Leo's nothing to you. I'm just the woman who cleans my floors. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle missing pieces. You think that's all I see? His hand rose, and I flinched before I could stop myself. He froze, jaw tightening, then deliberately, slowly, reached past me to tap a command on the screen. A new window opened. A file directory, with my name at the top. Scarlet Rose Miller, 26. Daughter of Janet Miller, deceased from cervical cancer when you were 19. No father listed on any document. Dropped out of Seattle University junior year to work 3 jobs. Certified nursing assistant. But your license lapsed 6 months ago when you couldn't afford the renewal. His finger scrolled, almost lazy. You applied to the temp agency 4 weeks ago. They placed you here in 72 hours. Fastest hire on record. My stomach turned to ice. You bought the agency. I own 6 of them. Cleaning services make excellent fronts. He glanced at me, something almost like amusement tugging at the corner of his mouth. The Lotus thinks they're clever, embedding you in my home. They don't realize I let them. I bought your contract the day it was filed. Every move you've made, every phone call, every tear you've cried in my closet. I've been watching. The violation of it hit like a slap. You sick. Careful. The word cracked like a whip, and suddenly his hand was around my throat, not squeezing, just there, a reminder of how easily he could, his thumb pressed against my racing pulse, feeling the proof of my terror. You came into my home to murder me. I had every right to put a bullet in you the moment you crossed the threshold. Instead, I protected you. I kept your son alive when the Lotus would have killed him the second you outlived your usefulness. So before you call me sick, ask yourself who the real predator is here. Tears burned, hot and shameful. Then why? If you knew, why let it get this far? His thumb stroked once, feather-light, over my hammering heartbeat. The tenderness of it was worse than violence. Because I needed to know if you were one of them, or if you were just a desperate mother backed into a corner. His eyes searched mine, and for the first time, I saw something beneath the ice. Something raw and almost human. You're not Lotus. You're collateral damage, and I don't let them break innocent things in my city. He released me, stepping back, and I gasped even though he hadn't been choking me. My hand flew to my throat, feeling the ghost warmth of his palm. Get some sleep, he said, nodding to the bed. Tomorrow we start cleaning up your mess. My mess? I laughed, high and brittle. You mean the part where a crime syndicate poisoned a child to blackmail me into killing you? That mess? No. Ye-jun moved to a side door. A closet, a bathroom, I didn't know. The part where your brother sold you both out for 30 pieces of silver. That mess. He disappeared inside, leaving me standing in the dark with the monitors glowing like cold stars, and Leo's sleeping face flickering on the screen. So close and yet a world away. My brother, Tyrell, who'd promised to take care of Leo while I worked doubles. Tyrell, who'd called me sobbing 2 weeks ago, saying the Lotus took him. Tyrell, who'd held my hand at Mama's funeral and sworn we'd survive this together. The denial rose like bile, but Ye-jun's words had already planted the seed, and I could feel it taking root in the cracks of my trust. Rain lashed the windows harder, and somewhere in the city below, my son slept under the watch of strangers, while I stood in a killer's bedroom, drowning in silk and secrets. I walked to the window, pressing my forehead against the cold glass, and whispered to my reflection, "What have you done, Ty?" The city didn't answer. It never did. Morning came like a betrayal, gray light seeping through the curtains, soft and apologetic, as if the sun itself was ashamed to rise on what this day would bring. I hadn't slept. How could I? With Leo's face burned into my retinas, and the phantom weight of Ye-jun's hand still warm against my throat, I'd curled up on top of the black sheets, shoes still on, uniform still damp, and watched the monitors until my eyes burned. Watched my baby boy breathe. Watched the guard change at 4 a.m. A woman this time, compact and lethal looking, who checked Leo's 4 with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. The door opened without a knock. Ye-jun entered carrying a tray, dressed now in black slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. The dragon's head peeked out from his collar, and in the pale light, he looked less like a mobster and more like some dark prince from a twisted fairy tale. Eat. He set the tray on the nightstand. Tea, rice, grilled fish. The smell made my stomach clench with hunger I'd been ignoring for days. I'm not hungry. You will be. He pulled a folder from under his arm, thick and official looking, and dropped it on the bed beside me. After you read that, I stared at the folder like it might bite. What is it? The truth about your brother. He moved to the window, hands in his pockets, giving me space that somehow felt more suffocating than his proximity. Open it, Scarlet, or spend the rest of your life wondering if I'm lying. My hands shook as I reached for it. The folder was warm from where it had been tucked against his body, and that small intimacy made my skin prickle. Inside, photographs, bank statements, security footage stills. The first photo showed Tyrell walking into a building I didn't recognize, brick and neon, with a red lotus flower glowing above the door. A casino. The timestamp read 3 months ago, 2 weeks before Leo got sick. My mouth went dry. The next image showed him at a poker table, chips stacked high, laughing with men whose faces were blurred but whose suits screamed money and violence. Another timestamp. 1 month ago. No. The word came out strangled. Ty doesn't gamble. He wouldn't. Keep going. I flipped pages with numb fingers. Bank statements in Tyrell's name, showing deposits I knew he couldn't have earned driving for rideshare. Withdrawals in cash, large and frequent. Then a receipt. A debt settlement agreement with Red Lotus Holdings, dated 2 weeks before Leo's diagnosis. The amount paid, $50,000. The method of payment, information brokerage. Target, C.Y.J. Vulnerability assessment. C.Y.J. I whispered. Choi Ye-jun. He sold me out first. Ye-jun's voice was flat, factual. Told them about the temp agency, about how you'd applied because you were desperate, about Leo. He turned to face me, and his expression was terrible in its gentleness. They didn't randomly choose your son, Scarlet. Tyrell gave them the blueprint. The folder slipped from my hands, photos scattering across the black sheets like gruesome confetti. One landed face up. Tyrell shaking hands with a woman in red, her face sharp and elegant, older, with silver streaking through black hair pulled into a severe bun. The Lotus Queen, Ye-jun supplied. My grandmother. That snapped my head up. Your what? It's a long story. He crossed to the bed, crouching down so we were eye level, and even through the shock, some distant part of my brain registered how beautiful he was up close, all sharp edges and dangerous grace. The short version. She hates that I took over the GM syndicate from my father, hates that I refused to play by the old rules, hates that I won't marry the woman she chose, so she built an empire to rival mine, and she's been trying to kill me for 2 years. And my brother owed money, got desperate, made a deal. He picked up the photo, studying it with clinical detachment. He told her about you, about Leo. She synthesized the disease in a lab, custom made to need a specific antidote she controls. Then she offered you a way to save him. All you had to do was poison me. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the bed, breathing hard, because the pieces were coming together and the picture they formed was so much worse than I'd imagined. Tyrell. He knew they'd use Leo like that? Ye-jun's silence was answer enough. No. I stood up so fast the tray clattered. No, he wouldn't. He's my brother. He helped raise Leo. He was there when... My voice cracked. He held him when he was born. He cried. He needed money more than he needed a conscience. Ye-jun rose, and suddenly he was too close, his presence filling the space between us. I'm sorry. I know you want him to be better than this. But men like him don't change, Scarlet. They just get better at lying. You don't know him. I know his type. His hand came up. And this time I didn't flinch when he cupped my face, tilting it up so I had to meet his eyes. I've killed dozens of them. Small-time hustlers who think they can play in the big leagues, who convince themselves that selling out family is just survival. who tell themselves it's not their fault right up until the moment someone puts a bullet in their head for being a liability. Tears spilled over, hot and angry. So what? You want me to hate him? Want me to thank you for showing me this? I want you to survive. His thumb brushed my cheekbone, wiping away moisture with a tenderness that made my chest ache. Because the Lotus won't stop with Leo. Once you failed to kill me, you became a loose end. And Tyrell? He's already spending the second half of his payout. He won't save you if they come for you next. He's still my family. No. Ye-jun's grip tightened, just enough to make me focus. He was your family. Past tense. The moment he traded your son's life for poker chips, he severed that tie. You just haven't accepted it yet. I wanted to scream at him. Wanted to claw that certainty out of his eyes. But the photos were right there, scattered across the bed like evidence at a crime scene, and I couldn't unsee them. Couldn't unfeel the cold truth settling into my bones. Why do you care? I choked out. What am I to you? Why go through all this just to... The door burst open. A man strode in. Tall, lean, with silver-streaked hair, and a suit too expensive for anyone who wasn't either a CEO or a criminal. He stopped short when he saw us. Ye-jun's hand still cradling my face, me with tears streaming and photos everywhere. Hyung, the man said in Korean, then switched to English. We have a problem. Ye-jun didn't move. I'm busy, Min, the Lotus called. They want proof of death by noon, or they start cutting pieces off the kid. Min's gaze flicked to me, something like pity in his dark eyes. They know the poison failed. The world dropped away. Ye-jun's hand fell from my face, and when he turned to Min, the gentle man who'd wiped my tears was gone. In his place stood something cold and lethal. A switch flipped so fast I almost didn't catch the transition. How? One word, but it carried the weight of a death sentence. Min grimaced. Someone talked. We're tracking it down, but find them. Bring them to the basement. Ye-jun's voice was ice, alive. And the woman? For a heartbeat, I thought he meant me, and my lungs seized. But Ye-jun shook his head. Tell the Lotus I'll meet. Neutral ground. I'll bring proof of cooperation. Min nodded and vanished as quickly as he'd come. I grabbed Ye-jun's arm, desperation making me bold. Proof of cooperation? What does that mean? You can't. I can, and I will. He pulled away, moving to a dresser and yanking out a black shirt. You wanted to know why I care? Here's your answer. He stripped off the white shirt. No hesitation, no modesty, and I saw the full expanse of his back, the dragon in daylight, the scars that crisscrossed his ribs. Because I'm tired of watching her destroy people just to get to me. Because Leo is a child, and children don't deserve to pay for adult sins. And because you... He turned, shrugging into the black shirt but leaving it unbuttoned, his chest bare and marked with more ink, more history. You remind me what I used to fight for before I became this. Became what? A monster who stopped apologizing for it. He closed the distance between us in 2 strides. And suddenly his hands were in my hair, tilting my head back, his face inches from mine. But monsters protect their own, Scarlet. And whether you like it or not, you're mine now. Leo is mine. And anyone who tries to take what's mine ends up in the ground. His breath was warm against my lips, smelling of mint and danger, and I hated how my body responded. Pulse jumping, skin flushing, something low in my belly tightening with want I had no right to feel. I need you to trust me, he murmured. And it wasn't a command. It was a plea. For the next few hours, I need you to believe I won't let him die. I don't even know you. Yes, you do. His forehead touched mine, and the intimacy of it stole my breath. You know I swallowed poison to prove a point. You know I've had guards on your son since before you walked into my home. You know I could have killed you a dozen times and didn't. That's more than trust, Scarlet. That's faith. Faith in a killer. Faith in a killer who's never lied to you. He pulled back, and the loss of his warmth felt like a wound. Get dressed. There's clothes in the closet. We leave in 20 minutes. Where? To make a deal with the devil. He buttoned his shirt, fingers swift and practiced. And you're coming with me so she knows exactly what she's losing. The car was black, sleek, and smelled like leather and gun oil. I sat in the back beside Ye-jun, wearing clothes that fit too well, black slacks, a silk blouse the color of deep wine, shoes that looked like they belonged in a glass case, not on actual pavement. He'd handed them to me without explanation, and I'd been too numb to argue. Min drove, silent and efficient, navigating Seattle's streets like he knew every shortcut, every blind spot. Rain hammered the roof, turning the world outside into a watercolor blur. Ye-jun hadn't spoken since we left the penthouse. He sat with one arm stretched across the back of the seat, not touching me, but close enough that I felt the heat of him, the coiled tension that suggested he could explode into violence at any second. "Why your grandmother?" I asked finally, because the silence was suffocating. Of all people, why her? He didn't look at me, just watched the city slide past. "Because she believes blood is destiny, that the GM syndicate should stay in the family, following the old ways, protection rackets, human trafficking, the kind of business that makes you rich but hollows you out." His jaw tightened. "When my father died, I took over. I was 23. She wanted me to marry her best friend's daughter, consolidate power, keep everything traditional. I refused. Why? Because I met someone." His voice dropped, and for the first time, I heard something vulnerable beneath the steel. A girl who thought I could be more than my last name, who made me want to burn the old empire down and build something cleaner, something I wouldn't be ashamed of. My heart clenched. What happened to her? My grandmother had her killed. Flat, factual, devastating. Made it look like a rival gang. By the time I found out the truth, it was too late. So I did what I should have done from the start. I exiled her, took everything she built and dismantled it. She retaliated by forming the Red Lotus. Been at war ever since. "I'm sorry." He finally looked at me, and his eyes were full of ghosts. "Don't be. It taught me that mercy is a luxury I can't afford. That the only way to protect what you love is to be more ruthless than your enemies." His hand moved, fingers brushing my cheek so lightly I might have imagined it. "But you make me want to try again, to believe there's still something in me worth saving." "I'm not her," I whispered. "I can't fix you. I don't want you to." His thumb traced my lower lip, and my breath hitched. "I just want you to survive long enough to see what we could be." The car stopped. I blinked, realizing we'd pulled up to a building I recognized, sleek and modern, glass and steel, with a lobby full of people in suits. A hospital. "Why are we?" "Because the Lotus wants proof you're cooperating," Ye-jun said, already out of the car. He opened my door, offering his hand. "And because it's time you understood what you are to me." I took his hand because I had no choice, and let him lead me inside, past security who nodded at him like he owned the place. He probably did. Into an elevator that climbed to the 10th floor. My pulse hammered in my ears, drowning out the soft jazz playing overhead. The elevator opened onto a medical wing. Sterile and white, smelling of antiseptic and fear. Ye-jun pulled me down a hallway, past rooms with closed doors, until we reached one guarded by a woman in scrubs who was definitely armed. She stepped aside without a word. Inside, the room was dim, curtains drawn, medical equipment beeped softly, and in the bed, "Leo!" I lurched forward, but Ye-jun held me back. "Don't wake him. He needs rest." My son looked so small, swallowed by white sheets, an IV trailing from his tiny arm. But his chest rose and fell steadily, and his color was better than the last time I'd seen him, less gray and more like the warm brown I loved. "I don't understand," I breathed. "You moved him?" "This morning. After the Lotus made their threat, Ye-jun released me, and I stumbled to Leo's bedside, taking his small hand in mine. It was warm, alive. "This facility is mine. Fully staffed, fully secure. They'd need an army to get through the door." Tears blurred my vision. I pressed Leo's hand to my lips, breathing in the little boy smell of him, apple juice and sleep and safety. "Why?" I looked up at Ye-jun, who stood at the foot of the bed, watching us with an expression I couldn't read. "You still haven't told me why you're doing this." He was quiet for a long moment, then moved around the bed to where I knelt. He crouched down, putting us eye level again, and pulled something from his pocket, a vial of blood. Dark red, almost black, with a medical label I couldn't read from this angle. 6 months ago, I started getting sick," he said quietly. "Headaches. Bleeding that wouldn't stop. The doctors ran tests. Genetic disorder. Inherited from my father's side. Fatal within a year without treatment." He held up the vial. The cure requires a bone marrow transplant from someone with a very specific genetic marker. 1 in 10 million odds. I had my people searching databases, registries, running DNA on anyone who came within 50 feet of me. My stomach dropped. No. Your nursing assistant application had your blood work attached. Required for TB screening. He smiled, but it was sad, almost apologetic. You matched. Perfectly. The only person in the entire Pacific Northwest with the antibodies I need. The room spun. So this whole thing. The job. The closet. Keeping Leo alive. It's because you need me for parts? It started that way, he admitted, and I appreciated that he didn't try to lie. I was going to have you harvested. Clean extraction. You'd wake up with some money and a gap in your memory. But then I watched you. He reached out, tucking a curl behind my ear. Watched you sing to yourself while you worked. Watched you cry in my bathroom when you thought no one could hear, clutching your phone with Leo's picture. Watched you be kind to my housekeeper, slip her extra money when you thought I wouldn't notice. His voice roughened, and I realized I didn't want to take from you. I wanted to give you everything. That's insane. Probably. He set the vial down, taking my free hand. But I'm a dying man obsessed with a woman who was supposed to be my cure and became my reason to live instead. Insanity is relative. I should have been terrified. Should have grabbed Leo and run, but his hand was warm around mine, and his eyes held something raw and desperate, and I'd spent so long being the strong one, the one who held everything together, that the idea of someone else carrying that weight, even someone as dangerous as him, felt like oxygen after drowning. What do you need from me? I asked. Nothing yet. The procedure isn't urgent for another few months. He stood, pulling me up with him. Right now, I need you to help me keep Leo alive. And to do that, we need to convince my grandmother that you're not a threat, that you're just a pawn who failed. How? By giving her what she wants. He checked his watch. In 2 hours, we meet her at a neutral location. You're going to walk in wearing that outfit, holding my arm, and show her exactly how thoroughly I've claimed you. Heat rushed through me. Shame and anger and something darker. Something that remembered the weight of his hand on my throat and wanted it back. I'm not your property. No, he agreed. But she doesn't know that, and if she thinks you are, if she believes you're just another acquisition, she might leave you alive. He leaned in, his lips brushing my ear. Play the role, Scarlet. Be my beautiful, broken maid who fell for her captor. Let her think she's won by making you a victim, and when her guard is down, we'll take everything from her. And if I refuse? His hand slid to my waist, firm and possessive. Then Leo grows up without a mother, and I die slowly in a hospital bed, and my grandmother wins. Is that what you want? I want my son safe. Then trust me one more time. He pulled back, studying my face. After today, if you want to leave, if you want to take Leo and disappear, I'll let you go. I'll give you enough money to start over anywhere in the world. But please, Scarlet, give me today. Help me end this. I looked down at Leo, sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the monsters negotiating over his life. Then back at Ye-jun, who'd somehow become the only thing standing between my son and death. One day, I whispered. His smile was terrible and beautiful. One day, the tea house sat in the heart of the International District, nestled between a dumpling shop and a store selling jade jewelry. From the outside, it looked harmless. Red lanterns swaying in the rain, delicate calligraphy on the sign, steam fogging the windows. Inside it was a study in contrasts. Dark wood and silk screens, traditional low tables, but with men stationed at every exit wearing suits that barely concealed their weapons. Ye-jun's hand rested on the small of my back as we entered, proprietary and deliberate. I'd fixed my makeup in the car, red lips, dark eyes, the armor of a woman who belonged on a powerful man's arm. The silk blouse clung to my curves, and I'd left my hair down, wild curls framing my face. I looked nothing like a maid, and that was the point. The matron who greeted us was ancient, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, but her eyes were sharp as glass. She bowed, murmuring in Korean, and led us to a private room in the back. The room was beautiful. Paper screens painted with cherry blossoms, a table set with porcelain teacups, cushions for kneeling, and at the head of the table sat a woman who could only be the Lotus Queen. She was smaller than I'd imagined, bird-boned and elegant, her silver-streaked hair coiled into a perfect bun. She wore a crimson hanbok, traditional and expensive, and her hands were folded in her lap like she was posing for a portrait. But her face… God, her face was Ye-jun's in feminine form, all sharp cheekbones and cruel beauty. "Grandson," she said in English, her accent crisp and British-tinged. "You've brought a pet." Ye-jun's hand tightened on my back. A warning or a comfort? I couldn't tell. "Grandmother, you asked for proof of cooperation. Here she is." The old woman's gaze slid to me, and I felt dissected. The poisoner who couldn't poison. How disappointing. She gestured to the cushions. "Sit. Let's discuss your failure properly." We sat. Me beside Ye-jun, close enough that our thighs touched. He poured tea with practiced grace, handing me a cup that I held but didn't drink. Across the table, 2 men flanked the Lotus Queen, both young and brutal-looking. "You killed my best operative," the Queen said, sipping her tea. "The one who recruited this girl." "Tyrell Miller is alive," Ye-jun replied calmly. "For now. Though after seeing his bank statements, I'm considering whether he's worth the bullets." My breath caught. He knew where Tyrell was. The Queen smiled. "The brother who sold her out. Poetic, isn't it? Family is always the sharpest knife." Her eyes found mine. "Tell me, girl, how does it feel knowing your own blood traded you for poker chips?" "It feels," I said, keeping my voice steady, "like I chose the wrong side. But I'm a fast learner." "Are you?" She set down her cup. "Then you understand your son lives only because my grandson finds you amusing. The moment he tires of you, the boy's treatment stops. So I suggest you make yourself very, very useful." Rage burned in my chest, but I swallowed it down. Played the role. I leaned into Ye-jun, letting my hand rest on his thigh. "I understand perfectly." The Queen's smile sharpened. "How sweet. He's made you a whore." Ye-jun moved so fast I barely saw it. 1 second he was sitting, the next he had a knife pressed to the throat of the guard on the Queen's right, the blade dimpling skin, a bead of blood welling dark. "Careful, grandmother," he said softly. "Insult her again, and I'll paint your walls with his blood." The room froze. The second guard reached for his gun, but the Queen raised a hand, stopping him. "Still so dramatic," she murmured, but there was calculation in her eyes now. A reassessment. "Fine. The girl is off limits, but you came here to negotiate, not posture. What do you want?" Ye-jun released the guard, who stumbled back, clutching his throat. He sat down again, pulling me close, his arm around my shoulders. 2 weeks. Give Leo 2 weeks without interference. In exchange, I'll give you a location, one of the warehouses you've been hunting. Full inventory. Not good enough. I want the university lab. The one with the research you stole. No. Then the boy. 3 fingers. The words dropped like stones. I twisted to look at Ye-jun, but his face was carved from ice. The Queen leaned back, her expression unreadable. 3 fingers? You're negotiating with body parts now? Yours or mine, grandmother? Choose. The air crystallized. I felt the weight of every eye in the room, the guards tensing, hands moving toward weapons. But Ye-jun sat perfectly still, his arm heavy across my shoulders, his breathing even, like he'd just offered her tea instead of mutilation. "You've grown theatrical," the Queen said, but something flickered in her eyes. Respect or fear? I couldn't tell. "Your father would be ashamed. My father's been dead 5 years. He doesn't get a vote." Ye-jun's fingers traced absent patterns on my shoulder, the touch intimate and deliberate, making a statement. "But if you want to discuss family legacy, we can talk about how you poisoned your own grandson to maintain control. How very traditional of you." The Queen's cup hit the table with a sharp crack. "Careful, boy. I'm done being careful." He pulled me closer, and I felt the coiled violence in his body, a predator deciding whether to strike or play. "Here's the new deal. You leave Leo alone, completely. No more manufactured diseases, no more threats. In exchange, I give you Tyrell Miller, the brother who sold them both out. You can do whatever you want with him. He's already spent half your money on bad bets and worse women." My breath stopped. Tyrell. He was offering up my brother like currency. "And why would I want a failed gambler?" the Queen asked, but her interest sharpened. "Because he knows things." Ye-jun's voice dropped, intimate and deadly. About your operation. About how you synthesized the disease. He was in your labs, grandmother. You got careless. Let him see too much while you were grooming him as an asset. He's a liability now, and you know it. The Queen's face remained placid, but the guards shifted. Attell, you're bluffing. Am I? Ye-jun pulled out his phone, tapped something and held it up. Security footage played, grainy but clear enough. Tyrell, walking through what looked like a pharmaceutical facility, talking to someone in a white coat. The timestamp was from 2 months ago. He's been singing to the DEA for 3 weeks now. Immunity deal pending. Unless, of course, he disappears before the paperwork goes through. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't process. My brother was a federal informant? My brother had seen the lab where they made Leo sick. The Queen studied the phone, then Ye-jun's face. Whatever calculation she was running ended with a slow nod. Bring me Tyrell Miller, alive and unspoiled, and you get your 2 weeks. But after that, the boy's treatment stops, unless you give me the university research. Deal. And one more thing. The Queen's gaze slid to me, cold and assessing. She stays here, with me, as collateral. Every muscle in Ye-jun's body went rigid. No. Then we have nothing to discuss. The Queen folded her hands. You want me to believe she's just your whore. Prove it. Leave her behind. If she means nothing, you'll get her back in 2 weeks with the boy. If she means something. A cruel smile. Well, then I'll know exactly how to hurt you. The room tilted. I felt Ye-jun's heart hammering against my side, his arm tightening until it almost hurt. Grandmother, he said, and his voice was soft, gentle even, the kind of soft that preceded carnage. If you touch her, I will kill you. Not exile, not imprisonment. I will put a bullet in your head and scatter your ashes in the ocean, so there's nothing left to bury with honor. Do you understand? The Queen smiled. So she does mean something. How sweet. She gestured to her guards. Take her. Everything happened at once. The guards moved. Ye-jun exploded from his seat, a gun appearing in his hand so fast I didn't see where it came from. But the Queen was faster. She had a gun too, pointed not at Ye-jun but at me, the barrel cold against my temple before I could scream. Sit down, grandson, she said pleasantly. Or I paint the walls with her beautiful face. Ye-jun froze, his weapon aimed at the guard's head, his eyes wild. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked afraid. You won't kill her, he said. But it sounded like a prayer. Won't I? The Queen's finger moved to the trigger. She's nothing. Replaceable. There are other bone marrow matches if we look hard enough. Other maids. Other desperate mothers. But there's only one Guillaume heir. And I will not let you waste yourself on. I'll give you the research. The words tore out of Ye-jun, ragged and desperate. All of it. Everything you want. The university lab, the formulas, the test subjects. Just let her go. The Queen paused. Everything? Everything. Slowly, she lowered the gun. You just valued her life over your entire empire. I hope she's worth it. She gestured, and her guards stepped back. 2 weeks. Bring me Tyrell and the research data. If either is missing, I come for all 3 of you. Ye-jun grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the door, his grip brutal enough to bruise. We made it to the hallway, to the rain-soaked street, to the car. Min was already there, engine running. We dove inside and the tires screamed as we peeled away from the curb. Hyung, what the hell? Min started. Drive, Ye-jun snarled. The city blurred past. My ears rang. I stared at Ye-jun's profile, at the muscle jumping in his jaw, the white-knuckle grip on his knee. You gave her everything, I whispered. He didn't look at me. I gave her nothing she can use. The research is encrypted. She doesn't have the key. But you said, I lied. Now he did look at me, and his eyes were black fire. I would have said anything to get you out of that room. Do you understand? Anything. The car hit a pothole and I lurched forward. Ye-jun caught me, his hands cradling my face, and suddenly we were too close, breathing the same air, the space between us charged with something electric and terrifying. She could have killed you, he said, and his voice cracked. She could have pulled that trigger and you would have been gone and I would have. He stopped, jaw clenching, fighting for control. I can't do this without you. I thought I could. Thought I just needed your blood, your antibodies. But it's more than that now. You've gotten under my skin and I don't know how to cut you out. Then don't, I breathed. His forehead dropped to mine, and we stayed like that. Two broken people holding each other together in the back of a speeding car while rain hammered the roof and the city tried to kill us. 2 weeks, he murmured. We get Leo. We finish this. And then you decide if you want to stay in my world or burn it down behind you. I closed my eyes, feeling the heat of him, the impossible safety of his arms. What if I want to burn it down with you still in it? His laugh was dark and broken. Then we'll make beautiful ashes, Jaggi. The car swerved, and Min's voice cut through. We've got a tail. 3 cars. Red Lotus. Ye-jun pulled away, his mask sliding back into place. He checked his gun, then handed me a smaller one from the glove box. Do you know how to use this? I thought of Leo, of Terrell's betrayal, of the Queen's gun against my head. I took the weapon. I'll learn fast. His smile was savage and proud. That's my girl. The warehouse district was a graveyard of rust and broken dreams. Shipping containers stacked like coffins, puddles reflecting neon from the distant port. Min killed the headlights and we coasted to a stop behind an abandoned truck, its tires long since stripped. They're boxing us in, Min said, watching the rear view. 2 behind, 1 circling to cut off the north exit. Ye-jun stared out at the maze of metal and shadow. How many men? At least 9, maybe 12. Min's hand was steady on his weapon. We could punch through, lose them in the side streets, and lead them straight to the safe house where Leo is. Ye-jun shook his head. No, we end it here. My heart kicked against my ribs. End it how? He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the calculation happening behind those dark eyes. Saw the moment he made a choice that would break something between us. Do you trust me? He asked. I should have said no. Should have demanded an explanation. But my mouth opened and said, yes. Then when we get out of this car? You're going to run. North exit. Past the blue container, there's a fence with a hole cut in it. On the other side is a 24-hour laundromat. Lock yourself in the bathroom and don't come out until I text you it's clear. I'm not leaving you. You are. His hand found mine, fingers lacing tight. Because what I'm about to do, you can't be here to see. You'll hate me for it. Maybe forever. But you'll be alive to hate me, and that's all that matters. Before I could argue, he kissed me. Hard and desperate, his mouth claiming mine with a hunger that tasted like goodbye. When he pulled back, my lips were bruised and my chest was caving in. Run, Scarlet. Don't look back. Don't look. He was out of the car before I could stop him, Min following, their guns drawn. I scrambled out my side, the rain immediately soaking through my silk blouse, turning it cold and clingy. Choi Ye-jun, a voice boomed from somewhere in the dark. The Queen wants a word. Ye-jun spread his arms wide, making himself a target. Then tell her to come say it to my face, instead of sending errand boys. Figures emerged from behind containers. Too many, all armed. Red Lotus tattoos visible even in the dim light. One of them, taller than the rest with a scar bisecting his face, stepped forward. She says you broke protocol, threatened her life. Scar's smile was all teeth. Can't let that slide, Viper. I didn't threaten. Ye-jun's voice carried across the space, steady and cold. I promised. There's a difference. Scar laughed. Big words for a dead man. He gestured, and his crew fanned out, circling. Drop the guns. Maybe we make it quick. Ye-jun looked back at me one last time. Run. And then he dropped his gun. The clatter of metal on concrete echoed. Min stared at him like he'd lost his mind. Hyung, put it down, Ye-jun ordered. Min hesitated, then obeyed. The Red Lotus men moved in, weapons trained. Scar approached, cocky now, thinking he'd won. On your knees. Ye-jun knelt, hands behind his head, compliant, beaten. It was wrong. Everything in my body screamed it was wrong. Take the girl too, Scar said, gesturing toward me. The Queen wants her breathing, but everything else is negotiable. 2 men broke off, heading my direction. Ye-jun's head snapped up. Scarlet, run! I ran. The sound of gunfire exploded behind me. Rapid, close, deafening. I didn't stop, didn't look, just sprinted toward the blue container with my heart trying to punch through my sternum. Behind me, men shouted. More gunfire. A scream cut short. I found the fence, found the hole, and threw myself through, metal scraping my arms. The laundromat was there, glowing, fluorescent, and empty. I crashed through the door and locked it, then stumbled to the bathroom and locked that too. Silence. Just my ragged breathing and the hum of washers. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. Scarlet Miller? A woman's voice, calm and professional. Who is this? Seattle PD. We have a situation at the warehouse district. Multiple gunshot victims. One of them is asking for you. The world dropped away. Is he alive? Ma'am. I need you to stay on the line. I hung up and ran. The warehouse was a war zone. Police lights strobed red and blue, casting everything in hellish color. Ambulances, body bags, crime scene tape. I ducked under it, running toward the cluster of EMTs. Ma'am, you can't. An officer grabbed my arm. That's my... I didn't know what to call Ye-jun. Employer? Captor? The man I was falling in love with despite every reason not to? Please. The officer's expression softened. He led me to an ambulance. Ye-jun sat on the back bumper, shirtless, blood everywhere. An EMT was wrapping his ribs, and I counted 3. No, 4. Bullet wounds. 1 in his shoulder, 2 in his side, 1 that had grazed his neck, leaving a red smile below his jaw. But he was alive, breathing. And when he saw me, his face crumpled with something that looked like relief and regret twisted together. You weren't supposed to come back, he said hoarsely. I pushed past the EMT and grabbed his face, needing to feel the heat of him, the reality. You got shot. 4 times. Vest caught 2. The others missed anything important. He winced as the EMT tightened a bandage. Min had an ankle piece they didn't check for. He got 3 of them the second I moved. I got the rest. The rest? I looked around, counting bodies being loaded into vans. 7, 8. You killed 8 men? They shot first. His eyes were hollow, haunted. I told you to run so you wouldn't see this, so you wouldn't know what I'm capable of. I saw it then. The fear beneath the blood. He thought I'd look at him differently now. Thought I'd see a monster instead of a man. I kissed him. Right there with police and EMTs watching, with his blood on my hands and rain washing it away. I kissed him until he made a sound low in his throat and pulled me closer despite his wounds. When I pulled back, I pressed my forehead to his. I already knew what you were. I chose you anyway. His hands shook as they cupped my face. Why? Because you chose me first. I brushed my thumb over his split lip. Because you gave up your empire for 2 more weeks with my son. Because you're the monster who makes me feel safe. The EMT cleared his throat. Sir, you need a hospital. No hospitals. Ye-jun stood, swaying slightly. Scarlet, call the car. We're going to the safe house. You're bleeding. I'll bleed there. He grabbed my hand, his grip weak but determined. We don't have time. The police will want statements, and I can't give them any without exposing Leo. We move now. I made the call. Min pulled up 5 minutes later in a different car, and we loaded Ye-jun into the back. I climbed in after him, and he immediately collapsed against me, his head on my lap. 2 weeks, he murmured as Min drove. We're down to 13 days. I stroked his hair, feeling the fever already building beneath his skin. Then we'd better make them count. The safe house was a warehouse converted into something almost beautiful. Exposed brick, high ceilings, and a medical bay that looked like it belonged in a private clinic. Ye-jun's people had set it up weeks ago, anticipating exactly this kind of disaster. A doctor was waiting, older Korean woman with steady hands and no questions. She took one look at Ye-jun and started barking orders. They laid him on a steel table under surgical lights. I stood back, arms wrapped around myself, watching as she cut away the bloody bandages. The bullets had done more damage than he'd admitted. Torn muscle, fractured ribs. One had lodged near his spine. Too close. We have bigger problems, Min said, his voice grave. While we were pinned down at the warehouse, a second Lotus team hit the secure clinic. They took the boy. My knees buckled. Leo? They have him. Ye-jun rasped from the table, gripping my hand until his knuckles turned white. And we are going to burn them down for it, I promise. Do it here. She sighed but nodded. Then you. She pointed at me. Scrub in. I need an extra pair of hands. 20 minutes later, I was wearing surgical gloves and holding a retractor while the doctor dug a bullet out of Ye-jun's shoulder. He'd refused anesthesia, said he needed to stay alert. So I watched him breathe through the pain, jaw locked, tendons standing out in his neck. "Talk to me," he said suddenly, eyes finding mine across the table. "Tell me about Leo. Something happy." My throat tightened. "He loves dinosaurs. Has every plastic one they make. Lines them up by period. Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous. Smart kid. Terrifying kid." A watery laugh escaped. "Last Christmas, he made me watch a documentary about the asteroid impact. He cried because the dinosaurs didn't know it was coming." Ye-jun's hand found mine, squeezing despite the pain. "We'll make sure he knows this one's coming. We'll give him time to run." The doctor extracted the bullet with a wet sound that made my stomach turn. She dropped it in a metal pan, then started suturing. "Why did you drop your gun?" I asked quietly. "Back at the warehouse. You let them think they'd won. Because 9 against 2 are bad odds. But 9 who think they've won, who get cocky and cluster together." His lips quirked. "Those odds I can work with." They stopped watching their angles, stopped covering each other. And when I grabbed the first one's weapon, they all froze for half a second. Half a second is all I needed. "You could have died. But I didn't." He pulled me closer, until my face was inches from his. "And neither did you. That's a win in my world." The doctor finished and stepped back. No strenuous activity for 2 weeks. Plenty of fluids. These pills for infection. She handed me a bottle. "He's lucky. Stupid, but lucky." After she left, I helped Ye-jun to a bed in the corner. Real mattress, clean sheets. He collapsed onto it with a groan, and I curled up beside him, careful of his bandages. "Scarlet? Yeah? When this is over." He trailed off, staring at the ceiling. "What do you want?" "Really want?" I thought about it. About the penthouse and the closet and the poison. About Leo's smile and Tyrell's betrayal. About Ye-jun's blood on my hands and his kiss in the rain. "I want Leo safe," I said finally. "And I want to stop looking over my shoulder. I want to wake up one morning and not wonder if today's the day someone takes him away. And me." His voice was barely a whisper. "Do you want me?" I lifted my head, meeting his eyes. "Yes. Even though I shouldn't. Even though you're dangerous and violent and you kill people. I want you." Something in his face cracked open. "Then we finish this. Together. And when it's done, I'll give you the safest life I can build." "I don't need safe," I said. "I need real." He pulled me down for a kiss, slow and deep. His hand tangled in my hair. "You're the realest thing I've ever had." We fell asleep like that. 2 broken people holding onto each other in the dark, while outside the city churned with violence and rain. I woke to voices. Ye-jun was still asleep, his breathing deep and even. But from somewhere in the warehouse came the sound of arguing, Min's voice, sharp and urgent, and another man's, unfamiliar. I slipped out of bed and crept toward the noise, following it to a back room lit by monitors. Min stood with his arms crossed, facing a thin man in zip ties and a bloody nose. Tyrell. My brother looked up and saw me. His eyes went wide. "Scar. Oh, thank God. You have to." "Shut up." The words came out flat and cold. I walked closer, studying him. He looked smaller than I remembered. Weaker. "Min. Why is he here?" "Boss's orders. We picked him up 3 hours ago from a motel downtown." Min gestured to the screens, which showed traffic cam footage. He was about to run, had a bag packed, fake ID, cash. I looked at Tyrell. "Where were you going?" "Mexico." He at least had the decency to look ashamed. "I was gonna send for you and Leo once I got settled." "I swear. You sold us out." My voice shook. They showed me the receipts, Ty. $50,000. That's what we were worth to you. I didn't have a choice. He lurched forward, and Min shoved him back down. "I owed people, Scar. Bad people. They were gonna kill me. So you let them kill Leo instead? He was supposed to be fine. They said it was just to scare you, make you cooperate. I didn't know they'd actually." His voice broke. "I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry." I stared at him, this stranger wearing my brother's face, and felt nothing. No anger, no grief. Just a cold, empty space where love used to be. "Min," I said quietly, "where's Ye-jun taking him?" "To the Queen. As payment for the 2 weeks." Tyrell went pale. No. No, Scar, please. You can't let him. They'll torture me. They'll… Good. I turned away. Maybe you'll finally understand what Leo's been going through. Scarlet! His scream followed me back through the warehouse. I'm your blood. You can't just… I stopped, looked back. You stopped being my blood the day you sold my son. Now you're just meat. I left him screaming and went back to Ye-jun, who was awake now, watching me from the bed. You heard? I asked. Every word. He held out his hand. Come here. I climbed back into bed, and he wrapped himself around me despite his injuries. Does it make me a monster? I whispered. That I don't care what they do to him? No. His lips brushed my temple. It makes you a mother, and monsters protect their young. 11 days later, we stood outside a mansion in the hills above the city. Victorian architecture, all gables and stone, with gardens whose upkeep could swallow an average yearly income whole. The Red Lotus stronghold. Ye-jun had healed fast. Too fast, the doctor said. But he'd ignored her and started training the day his stitches came out. Now he stood beside me in a black suit, looking every inch the crime lord, while I wore a dress that was more weapon than clothing. Red silk that clung and a slit high enough to hide the knife strapped to my thigh. Last chance to stay in the car, he said. Not happening. Min handed us earpieces. Teams in position. North and south exits covered. But boss, she's got at least 30 people in there. If this goes bad, then we die expensive. Ye-jun checked his gun one last time. Ready? I thought of Leo. Still in the medical bay at the safe house, getting stronger every day. Thought of the antidote we'd synthesized from my blood. The cure that was finally working. Thought of the life waiting on the other side of this nightmare. Ready. We walked up the drive. The front door opened before we reached it, and a man in a suit gestured us inside. The foyer was all marble and chandeliers, elegant and cold. The queen waited in what looked like a throne room. High-backed chair, tapestries, the works. She wore white today, like a bride or a corpse. Tyrell knelt beside her, alive but changed. Ye-jun had delivered him to her 10 days ago, fulfilling his end of the bargain, and the time in her care had broken him completely. Bruises colored his face, and his left hand was wrapped in bandages missing 2 fingers. I felt nothing. Grandson, the queen said pleasantly. You brought my research. Ye-jun held up a flash drive. Everything you asked for. I stared at the small plastic rectangle. The drive was encrypted, useless without the key he'd admitted to me he didn't have. He wasn't trading information. He was buying time. Leo's treatment ends tomorrow, he said, his voice steady. We're done. Almost done. She gestured, and guards moved into position. Too many. I need one more thing. We had a deal, and I'm amending it. She stood, gliding down the steps. The research is useless without the encryption key. Give it to me. Her voice cracked, losing its composure. She coughed, a wet, rattling sound that I recognized from Ye-jun's worst nights. She was sick. The hereditary rot was killing her too, and she'd destroyed her own family to steal the cure. Give it to me, she wheezed, or your maid watches her son die on video. A screen flickered to life behind her. Live feed. The safe house medical bay. Leo's bed, empty. The queen frowned. What? Ye-jun tapped his earpiece, listening to a voice only he could hear. Assets secure, he murmured. Then he looked at his grandmother with a smile that was all teeth. He's not in the safe house, grandmother. He was in your basement, and my team just cut him loose. Explosions rocked the mansion. Before she could process the betrayal, north and south wings blew simultaneously. North and south wings, simultaneously. The lights died. Emergency generators kicked in, bathing everything in red. Ye-jun smiled. You should have taken the deal. Chaos erupted. His people poured in through the smoke, Min leading them, armed and efficient. The queen's guards returned fire, but they were in a crossfire, and within 30 seconds half of them were down. I ran for Tyrell. Not to save him, to get past him, to the hallway beyond where I knew Leo had to be, because Ye-jun wouldn't have blown the mansion, unless Leo was already out. Scarlet. Tyrell grabbed my ankle, his grip desperate and wet with sweat. Help me, please. I didn't hesitate. I drew the knife from my thigh holster, the blade flashing red in the emergency lights, and slashed down. Not to kill, but to sever his hold on me. He screamed and recoiled, clutching his hand. I stepped over him and kept running. The hallway was stone and shadow. I found a stairwell, took it down, until I hit a basement level that reeked of chemicals and fear. Doors lined both sides. I tried them one by one until I found it, a laboratory. And in the center, in a makeshift hospital bed, was Leo. "Mama?" His voice was small and scared, but he was awake. Alert. Alive. "Baby!" I ran to him, gathering him up, checking for injuries. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" A mean lady came, but the doctor lady stopped her. He clung to me. "I want to go home." "We are, right now." I lifted him. He was so light, still too light, and turned to find the queen standing in the doorway. She had a gun, of course she did. "Put him down," she said calmly. I held Leo tighter. "No, I wasn't asking." She aimed at his head. "Put him down." Time slowed. I saw the trajectory, saw my son's trusting eyes, saw the queen's finger tighten on the trigger, and I threw myself forward. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Pain exploded across my ribs, white-hot and absolute. I hit the floor hard, Leo rolling away from me, screaming. The queen advanced. "Stubborn girl. You could have just..." Ye-jun appeared behind her like a ghost. He didn't say a word, just wrapped his arm around her throat and squeezed. She clawed at him, but he was relentless, dragging her backward. "Min!" he shouted. "Get them out." Min scooped up Leo and grabbed my arm, hauling me to my feet despite the blood pouring from my side. We stumbled back through the hallway, up the stairs, into the chaos of the foyer. Bodies everywhere. Smoke, fire spreading from the wings. The car was waiting. Min shoved us into the back and floored it. Through the rear window, I watched the mansion burn, and somewhere inside, Ye-jun was still fighting. "He'll make it," Min said, seeing my face. "He always does." I held Leo and prayed he was right. 3 months later, I stood in the penthouse closet that had once been my prison and was now something else entirely. The silk shirts were gone. In their place, a crib, a rocking chair, shelves full of dinosaurs. The walls had been painted a soft blue, and someone, Ye-jun, I suspected, had hung glow in the dark stars on the ceiling. Leo's room. His nursery. "Mama, look!" Leo ran in, holding a triceratops. "Uncle Min got me a new one." "That's beautiful, baby." I caught him, pulling him into a hug. He felt solid now. Real. The toxin was gone, flushed from his system by the antidote we'd synthesized from my blood. It was the same procedure that had cleared Ye-jun's genetic markers last month. 1 extraction from me, 2 lives saved. My hip still ached sometimes from the marrow extraction 3 months ago. A dull throb when it rained, but holding my healthy, laughing boy made every second of that pain feel like a blessing. His hair was growing back thick and curly, and his smile could light up the city. "Where's Ye-jun?" he asked. "Right here." The voice came from the doorway, and my heart did its familiar stutter. Ye-jun leaned against the frame, shirtless in sweatpants, his scars on full display. The dragon tattoo had been joined by new ink. A lotus flower on his ribs, delicate and red, with my name hidden in the petals. He'd gotten it the day we buried the queen's ashes in the ocean, fulfilling his promise. "Can we watch the dinosaur movie?" Leo asked, already running to him. "The one where they all die?" Ye-jun hoisted him up. "Your mom cries every time." "I do not." "You do." He grinned at me over Leo's head. "But it's cute." They disappeared toward the living room, and I followed, stepping out of the closet and into the light. The penthouse had changed. Less cold, more lived in. Photos on the walls. Leo's artwork, snapshots of us at the park. The beach. Living a life I'd never thought possible. Ye-jun had stepped back from the GM syndicate, handing daily operations to Min while he focused on legitimate businesses. We weren't clean. Would never be clean. But we were cleaner. Safer. I found them on the couch, Leo already asleep against Ye-jun's chest. The movie played on mute, and Ye-jun just sat there, one hand on Leo's back, staring at him like he was something precious. "He called you his uncle," I said softly, settling beside them. "Better than calling me the scary man." Ye-jun's thumb traced circles on Leo's spine. "Is that okay? That he sees me that way?" "No," I watched his face fall. I want him to call you something else. What? I took his free hand, lacing our fingers. I was thinking, Dad. The world stopped. Ye-jun stared at me, his eyes going glassy. Scarlet, you've earned it. Every night reading to him. Every morning making his favorite breakfast. Every dinosaur documentary you pretended to enjoy. You're already his father in every way that matters. A tear slid down his cheek. Just one, but it was enough. I don't deserve this. Either of you. Probably not. I kissed him, tasting salt and promise. But you're stuck with us anyway. He pulled me closer. Leo nestled between us. And we sat like that while the movie played. 3 people who'd found each other in the dark and chosen to build something beautiful in the light. Outside, the city glittered. Inside, we were home. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what tomorrow would bring. Because tomorrow, I'd wake up next to a monster who'd become a man. A son who'd beaten death. And a closet that had been transformed from a place of tears into a nursery full of dreams. The poison was gone. The choice was made. And the man I'd been supposed to murder was teaching my son the names of all the dinosaurs, his deep voice rumbling with laughter as Leo sleepily corrected his pronunciation. This was my empire now. Not built on fear or blood, but on second chances and stubborn love, and I'd burn the whole world down to protect it.